The Midwife's Apprentice, book review by Grace. The Midwife's Apprentice is a novel related to history by Cushman. It was set around the 14th century, Middle Ages or medieval times. It took place in England. I can understand that it took place in England because Edward, one of the characters, was asking the villagers the king's name. And medieval times happened in England. Some places mentioned in the novel, for example, a manor house and cottages, are English. I agree when Jane Sharp said giving up is different from failing. When you fail, you get to try again. But when you give up, you wouldn't be able to try again. That means giving up is worse than failing. Jane didn't help the villagers unless they were able to pay her. I disagree with this. I think that this attitude was too harsh, and it is unfair when Jane didn't help the villagers just because they didn't have money. I also disagree with the villagers taunting and abusing Alice because they hated Jane. I also disagree with this because they abused Alice even though she did nothing wrong. The confusing part in the story was when Jane Sharp accepted Alice, not because she felt bad for her. It confused me because I thought most people would have felt sorry for her. However, Jane wanted Alice as her apprentice for making more money. The surprising part when Alice started with nothing and her life changed into a better life. At first, Alice didn't have any home, food, or money. She was peasant, so people didn't respect her. However, by the end of the book, she had changed her life into a better life. She had a profession, which was a midwife's apprentice, and now people respected her and she could read. Also, she became more confident than before. The important part is when Alice finally realizes that she deserves to be a midwife's apprentice in the final chapter. She didn't give up and she became a stronger and more confident person. She recognized that she could do anything if she worked hard. The striking use of language was the word incompetent. I think the word incompetent was well used in this book. It means not having or showing the necessary skills to succeed on something. I think flounder and compendium was also important in this book. To flounder is to struggle from walking in mud or water, and the definition of compendium is a brief treatment. I never knew these three words before I read this book. The prominent and the significant details was when Alice met Jane Sharp and Magister Reese. After that, her life changed. Even Jane was disrespecting her, Alice tried her best in her duty. She also learned her first education by Magister Reese, the scholar. Actually, he was tricking her by pretending to teach a cat. This method made Alice become confident person. After meeting them, Alice became more diligent. Alice has a caring personality. She saved the cat when the boys put it inside the sack with an eel and threw it into the lake in chapter 2. She also sometimes fed the cat, tore her skirt and wrapped the cat when it was wet and brought it to the dung heap to keep it warm. She wanted the cat to have a chance to live if it was still alive. She was also resourceful because she tried different strategies while delivering a woman's baby. In chapter 16, she didn't give up and used different methods since she didn't have clean linen, ointments, and herbs that she usually used for delivering babies. The different strategies that she used was tearing a coarse thread from the hem of the woman's dress, tying the baby's cord, cutting the cord with a carving knife, spitting on her hands and rubbing the cut end. Alice is an empathetic character since she understood Edward's feelings when she first met Edward. She understood that he felt hungry, so she gave him parsnip tops, bread and cheese. She also helped him to find work. Jane's personality is greedy and callous. The reason it was because she wanted Alice to be her apprentice for a greedy purpose. So, she took advantage of Alice, who looks hungry as she knew. Alice would work hard for a little reward because she was starving. In chapter 1, the reason why she was callous was because she wouldn't help the villagers unless they could pay her, and she wouldn't feed Alice unless she worked, even on Lady Day. She's also disrespectful. She called Alice brainless brat or dung beetle, which wasn't polite. She also said, "Get out of my sight, dung beetle, before I squash you." In this book, the author used a third-person point of view to help the reader to understand better about the main character's perspective. The aspects of life mentioned in the novel were hygiene. Alice slept in the dung since she didn't have any place to live before she became the midwife's apprentice. Aspects of medieval life is back in the medieval life, hunger was a huge problem because people wouldn't get a chance to eat unless they worked. And the food's quality wasn't as satisfying as the food that we have nowadays. They mostly got food by growing it themselves. Medication that are commonly used were plants, herbs such as ragworts, columbine, and home remedies, which are used for the birth of a baby and taking care of the mothers. The author had included these aspects to the story, create a medieval setting where the characters are realistic. Jane Sharp, the midwife, gives her a stable life and she learns the skill of midwifery from the midwife. Will Russet learned his lesson after Alice saved him when he floundered in the water. His lesson was to treat Alice nicer, since he used to tease her. After he learned his lesson, he started to become nicer and kinder. He was the second friend that Alice had made. The lesson that Will learned had an impact on Alice's friendship. Edward had an impact on Alice for showing empathy. When she first met Edward, she remembered when she lived in the dung heap and getting teased by the boys in the village. So she helped him by giving food and telling the boys to stop teasing. The cat was the first friend that Alice ever made. They shared cheese and bread together. They also have a lot of similarities. For example, they don't have a home to live, so they live outside. The cat encouraged her friendship. Jeanette has an impact on Alice's hard work, since she is strong, willing, and undemanding characters. She had well content with Alice. Her willing personality made her diligent and hardworking. Magister Reese teaches her how to read by teaching the cat first. By learning how to read, Alice develops her confidence. I think she will succeed in making a life for herself because she is smart, determined, and resourceful. Thank you for watching my presentation.